It's Monday, June 14th. This is The Street Live. I'm Katherine Ross, and I am, of course, joined by Jim Cramer. So, Jim, we're getting kind of a quiet week to start. What are you watching in the markets today?
Well, look, I think that Paul Tudor Jones, who runs, of course, the real Robinhood, did such a fantastic job on Squawk today, kind of setting up the fact that Wednesday's meeting with the Fed could be monumental. Now, I don't think it will be. I don't like to bet against Paul Tudor Jones, though. He's been so smart. He also knows commodities. And he is saying that if the Fed stays the course, you could have a gigantic move in the inflation trade. Now, the inflation trade is obviously commodities, but it's also many of the stocks we follow, which would be NASDAQ. And I think you're seeing this difference right now, NASDAQ going up at the semis, and I think I would be buying the Caterpillars if you think he's going to be right. But I just enjoyed the idea that he's saying it's a monumental meeting, as if maybe there could be a change. I don't think there will.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, Jim, because I do think that there is a consensus here that people really want to hear about tapering, obviously, but they're also kind of preparing for a taper tantrum following the Federal Reserve's meeting.
Yes,
I want to talk to you.
Look, Catherine, it's entirely possible that he does say, look, we have to end this at a certain point. And that's enough to really cause a taper tantrum, because the people who are buying these bonds, and they buy them and the interest rates have come down big, they're going to get scared. These are not rational people sitting around and saying, I'm going to ignore that. They just take action. And the people who take action, they hurt the market. So, I mean, I always say to people, look, you shouldn't care as much about what happens. You should care about how people will react. And people will react very negatively if he says anything about the idea that they shouldn't keep buying bonds.
And that's, Jim, what I want to focus in on, because if we do get a taper tantrum, for those who are wondering what the heck that is, that means that once we hear from the Fed and they look to taper interest rates, then we could see the markets kind of go volatile, probably go in the red. So, Jim, let's define what an investor should do if we do get a bit of a taper tantrum following Wednesday's meeting.
Well, I mean, the market just goes down. I mean, there's no nuance to it. The last few taper tantrums have made everything go down, and I think people have to be prepared that that's what will happen. I think that we're in a seasonally, going into a seasonally weak period. I do think that there's the possibility that when there's so many different questions, they wear you down. I mean, after his sixth question about why don't you taper your buying, he might say, look, one day we are going to, and then the market goes down very big. So just understand that if Jay Powell decides, let's say he weakens his resolve to help people make a little more money, particularly the poorer people of this country, which is what I think he's trying to do, then I think we have a taper tantrum and all stocks go down.
Well, and I think that we should note, Jim, that on Thursday, the day after the Fed meeting, you're going to be sitting down with the members of Action Alerts Plus to talk to them about the markets overall, and this is probably going to be something that you cover. So before we hear from the Fed, I do want to see if maybe Action Alerts Plus, if we do see the markets in the red after the meeting, would you guys consider buying over there?
Well, we have to take a look about what the statements are. I think that we're big believers that we own the shares of good companies. And if the shares of good companies come down a lot, we will be buyers. And that has been our mantra. And we're not going to change our mantra. We won't do it aggressively, because a taper tantrum by definition does not just take one day. It's a multi-day move. But we're going to be wary going in. But as we always have to, we've raised a lot of cash. We have it. We've sold a lot. We sold Nike. That was a long-standing position. And have that money ready. We've been talking back and forth about other stocks. I want to wait until the meeting to describe, because we're not necessarily going to take action today. But we have the cash to be able to take advantage of any taper tantrum for certain.
So stay tuned on Action Alerts Plus. Jim, before we talk about Nike, because that is the name I want to hit on this morning, I do want to dig into the comments that you made on CNBC about how Reddit investors or social media investors may not realize that the hedge funds are actually capitalizing on the momentum that they create, which is something that TrendSpider's chief market analyst, Jake was just told me last week.
Look, I don't mean to cast aspersions on people who are constantly casting aspersions on me. But the fact is that hedge funds are in there doing what the meme people are, and they're the big profiteers. And I think that the meme people who think that they're being so take from the rich and give to the poor are deluding themselves. I think that they had, when they started with GameStop and AMC, they had a game plan, and that was terrific. But now there is no game plan. It's just, well, let's try to bust this short, bust that short. And the Wendy's was a good example. Today, the Corsair. These are good companies. I like Corsair very much. But I think we have to understand that after the stock goes up, the shorts recognize that they don't have the buying power. The memesters don't have the buying power to keep it up. So then they short Corsair at the end of the day and they profit, like you could have with Wendy's. So to some degree, sadly, the meme people are tools of the rich people who have suits and are baby boomers, the very people they hate. And they have to come up with a new game plan if they really want to disenfranchise or take away the money of the people whom they are unwittingly working for.
So we got a tweet from Tesla CEO Elon Musk this weekend saying, in regards to Bitcoin, when there's confirmation of a reasonable 50% clean energy usage by miners with positive future trend, then Tesla will resume allowing Bitcoin transactions, he said. Now, you spoke on Friday on your Off the Charts segment with Tom DeMark about Bitcoin, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's worried. He's talking about Bitcoin using a comparison of a Great Depression. And it's entirely possible. I mean, how the Dow did and where it's going to go, and it could retest the low. I think everything that DeMark said is eminently reasonable. I checked my Bitcoin position on Friday after I did that when I was looking at the piece itself, and I looked at my Bitcoin position again this morning, and I don't think anything needs to change. I am not very long Bitcoin. I sold almost all of it to buy this farm that I fished on and caught a gigantic bass that you can see if you go down my Twitter feed. And what is amazing to me is that there are so many people who want to be paid in Bitcoin. They want Bitcoin to be this and that. And Miami, they love Bitcoin. And El Salvador, hey, when something goes down, you don't love it as much as when something goes up.
It's true, Jim, and DeMark says that we could see about 9 days of the Bitcoin price going down by a decent amount, which leads me to wonder if maybe before we see stabilization in Bitcoin, if you're looking to add to your position, would those 9 days be the opportunities?
Well, again, it has to crash first. I mean, I happen to like Bitcoin. If it came down the way that DeMark's talking about, it's not a buy. I mean, he's just saying it's going to take forever to go back up. So, I mean, if you believe in DeMark, you don't want to use it as an attractive buying opportunity. It's not. I like Ethereum more than Bitcoin. I think Ethereum is being used more. It's a little less cumbersome. You find when you're bidding on things, it's Ethereum. But I'm not going crazy in the group because I had a big hit in the group. And I tend not to revisit a group that I had a big hit in.
That's a fair point, Jim. Now, you mentioned Corsair just a little bit ago, so let's circle back to that stock. It's a souped-up Logitech, you said, in your mad dash. So with this momentum that we're seeing from the retail traders, you also noted that those who own Corsair before now will probably sell.
Well, I mean, Corsair is a great company, and I love it. I like Logitech. What the memesters have not been able to demonstrate is any power away from staying power, away from GameStop and away from AMC. You could say they've done, Bed Bath, but Bed Bath's turning around. Bed Bath's too high, I think, but it can turn around. But they have not demonstrated the ability to keep other stocks in the air, witness Wendy's. And instead what happens is they bid the stocks up, and very rich, big hedge funds, I believe, because I don't talk to them, but I believe it's pretty obvious, Jesus, go in and then short the stocks and then profit from it. And you could say, well, hold it, Jim, you did a video with Aaron Task. You talked about how you did that. I never traded the futures. There was a second video where I completely explained what happened, but they don't care about that. You could say that I told people that Bear Stearns was safe to keep your money, and that was true. Everybody who had their money in it got it. So you can just keep trying to discredit me. I just say good luck. I am telling you that you may discredit me any way you want. It doesn't matter. You keep coming back to the two same things that have never been, that are just urban legend about me. I say this. You want some urban legend? That you really think that you're not helping the rich people. That you really think you're not helping the billionaires. That you really think you're not helping the hedge funds. I say they're having a great laugh at your expense.
Okay, so Jim, I want to dig into Lordstown. So the top executives, CEO Steve Burns and CFO Julio Rodriguez, are out following a board investigation. Now, I don't know if this is that surprising following the news just last week that they're struggling with cash to start its commercial production of its electric pickup truck. But if investors still has shares of Lordstown, Jim, what should they do?
Well, I don't know how they could ever have shares in Lordstown. I've been hammering that thing relentlessly ever since the CEO Burns said that he had orders on my show, and then there were no orders. It was just an expression of interest, whatever that is. So I can't help those people who own Lordstown. I mean, I helped you get out at a much higher price. I'm not going to give you an opine on what to do now.
So then let's turn our attention to Nike, which is a stock that you also mentioned earlier in this show. You like the UBS note on Nike, and last week Action Alerts Plus did exit the Nike position. So why do you like this note? And if an investor wants to buy, then what's the move for you?
Okay, well, Nike, that note, Evidence Lab, UBS, is saying that the company's going to be very cautious. That's historically been a real negative when it reports. And that the caution is going to stem from what China might do. I think that we owned too much China exposure, Starbucks, Nike, and we still own Apple, but I think Apple's bigger than China. But I do think that to be cautious is to be right. And I always fear that John Donahoe, a man of great conscience who runs Nike, is going to be asked about religious freedom in Nike. And he could say, well, we don't have anything to do with that. But that's very unlike the positions that they've taken historically about civil rights in our country. So I fear that question, once it's on the table, could trigger a chain reaction in the PRC. So I want to wait to see what happens on Nike. I'm glad that we took the profit.
Well, Jim is now heading over to his Action Alerts Plus Daily Rundown show with Jeff Marks, Senior Portfolio Analyst with Action Alerts Plus. I'm going to be tuning in, and I hope that you guys tune in as well. You can watch it over on actionalertsplus.com. I'm Katherine Ross, and we'll see you tomorrow.